Okay, we can start. First of all, I would like to thank you to being here for this workshop after our General Assembly. I would like really to thank President Vardakastanis for hosting us and give us all the facilities to, let's say, prepare this meeting. And he's always with us, as you know very well, and is a friend of islands, being him from an island. So I will ask, first of all, Mr. Vardakastanis to take the floor. After Mr. Vardakastanis is Joseph Borg, the president of INSULEUR. Following that is our friend Eleftheris Kechagioglou from the small islands. And last but not least at all, our Greek ambassador in Belgium will close the meeting, the first meeting. President Vardakastanis.
Thank you. Everyone, Your Excellency, Ambassador to Belgium from Greece, dear Mr. Borg, dear Mr. Kechagioglou, dear colleagues, dear guests, I would like to warmly welcome you all here once again in the premises of the European Economic and Social Committee, the House of Organized Civil Society. You are a regular guest at our premises, and you know very well that we support always what you do because we fully endorse your very principal aim to improve the economic and social conditions in the European insular regions. We know you make daily efforts to help these regions cope with the physical difficulties that they are facing due to their insular nature. You are fully aware that we do our best to promote in our work, your work, but also to keep the island agenda on the very top of the priorities of the European Union. One of the most important priorities of the ECO section and the European Economic and Social Committee as a whole is to ensure that there is a reduction of disparities between the levels of development of various regions and the backwardness of the least favored regions, and in particular also of the island regions. Now, almost 1 month after the European elections, and in the perspective of the new mandate of the Commission, we need to speed up and step up and join again forces so that we can manage to achieve our common objectives and face the very serious challenges that insularity brings. We adopted at the end of May a very important opinion on the 9th Cohesion Report. In this opinion, we stress that territorial cohesion means ensuring a harmonious development of the wide diversity of places in the European Union. We must guarantee that in every corner of Europe, the inequalities that prevent economic and social upward cohesion from being achieved should disappear from all levels. The 9th Cohesion Report shows that economic disparities remain large across the continent and especially on islands. Not all territories benefit from the same growth dynamics, and disparities occur also within member states, for example, due to development traps in certain areas. Broadly speaking, urban areas reported better performance in almost all indicators for every thematic area. Cities are ahead in economic development, employment, education. They are better connected. This enhances opportunities and social life and, in general, leads to higher living standards. Therefore, the report underlines the need for more balanced territorial development in response to the strong polarization of growth drivers between capital regions and large metropolitan centers on the one hand, and regions with lower population density on the other hand. This is why policies linked to territorial cohesion should be designed and implemented to promote competitiveness and growth and help reduce inequalities linked to the territory between and within regions. Special attention must be given to regions in the development trap. We see from the 9th Cohesion Report that islands are in this vicious circle and is not easy at all to get out from this vicious circle. In fact, current cohesion policy does not have all the right tools to address or avoid such situations. The new cohesion policy should take this element into account and ensure, through a proactive approach, that the resources and the tools capable of avoiding development traps are available. Thank you very much for your attention. More later about the future of cohesion policy. Thank you.
Thank you, President Vardakastanis. We count on you really for all our efforts for our European policies, including taxation and cohesion policy. President Joseph Fork, please.
Good morning again. Thank you for your presence here, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Greece to the EU, Mr. Vardakastanis, distinguished guests, colleagues and partners. On behalf of INSULEUR, I am honored to welcome you to this workshop on European island economies that need more attention at the new cohesion policy after 2027. First of all, I extend my gratitude to the European Economic and Social Committee, to the CPMR Islands Commission, and to the European Small Islands Federation for their collaboration in organizing this event. We meet today, we convene at a critical juncture for the future of European island regions. The unique challenges and opportunities faced by our islands necessitate focused attention and policy frameworks to ensure their sustainable development and seamless integration into the broader European agenda. In my recent correspondence with Mr. Charles Michel, President of the European Council, I emphasized the urgent need to incorporate island-specific measures within the EU strategic agenda for 2024-2029. The COVID-19 pandemic has shed light on the permanent natural and demographic handicaps that our islands face, and it is imperative that these are addressed in future policies. I hope that our appeal and considerations contained in this letter are duly taken into consideration. Our team at INSULEUR will continue to work so that our aspirations will be met with. The 9th report of the European Commission on cohesion policy, already mentioned by Mr. Vardakastanis, clearly states that island regions require particular consideration to achieve convergence with mainland regions. These regions encounter distinct socio-economic and geographical challenges that demand tailored policy approaches. Cohesion policy is instrumental in fostering harmonious economic, social and territorial development. Article 174 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union mandates particular attention to regions suffering from severe and permanent natural or demographic disadvantages, including islands. Yet despite these provisions, island territories are frequently neglected in policy implementation, resulting in a substantial support gap. Successive cohesion reports over the past years have often failed to propose concrete measures for island territories. While the 8th cohesion report made some progress, there remains an urgent need for targeted provisions to address the unique challenges of island regions. Today's workshop aims to highlight these issues, ensuring that the post-2027 cohesion policy framework duly considers the specific needs of our islands. Furthermore, the discussions within the European Council regarding the Just Transition Fund must include specific island measures to mitigate the socio-economic impacts of the European Union's green transition. It is crucial to integrate the insularity clause into EU legislation. This clause will mandate that all significant economic or social decisions include a thorough analysis of their impacts on island regions. Our islands confront distinctive challenges. As always, we speak of limited accessibility, over-reliance on tourism, inadequate healthcare facilities, and significant demographic changes. These factors have compounded the economic impacts of the pandemic, underscoring the critical need for the integration of insular considerations into all national and European Union policies. In this context, we hope that the presentation which we will soon have by Dana Kroku, who is the project officer of INSULEUR on business demography in islands as a knowledge base for European policies, will have an impact on the discussion which needs to be done on this subject. In conclusion, the deliberations we engage in today and the collaborative efforts of stakeholders across European Union institutions and island communities are essential in shaping a future where no region is marginalized. By addressing the specific needs of islands' economies, we can foster reliance, promote sustainable growth, and ensure that our islands prosper within the broader European framework. Thank you all for your attention and for your unwavering commitment and support to the advancement of European island communities. Thank you.
Thank you, President Borg, for this very interesting introduction. Now I'm giving the floor to Mr. Eleftherios Kechagioglou, our secular friend, a man of the field. Every time, in all small islands in Greece and not only. So please, Lefteris, you have the floor.
Αγαπητέ κύριε Πρέσβη, έχω ένα PowerPoint, μια παρουσίαση για την... Κυρία Πρέσβη, κύριοι Πρόεδροι, φίλοι Πρόεδροι, μάλλον αναφέρομαι στον Πρόεδρο τον Γιάννη τον Βαρδακαστάνη και τον Πρόεδρο του Μπόργκ, νιώθω ότι βρίσκομαι στο σπίτι μου και δεν θα υπήρχε καλύτερη σύνθεση αν... Μ' ακούτε? Ναι. Καλύτερη σύνθεση μεταξύ των μικρών νησιών και της επιχειρηματικότητας, γιατί αυτή είναι η πρώτη και αναγκαία συνθήκη για να μπορέσουμε να λειτουργήσουν τα νησιά μας και βέβαια αυτά όλα μετουσιώνται στο πρόσωπο του Γιάννη του Βαρδακαστάνη, ο οποίος ως υπεύθυνος για θέματα που έχουν να κάνουν την επιχειρηματικότητα έχει προσφέρει τα μέγιστα στα ελληνικά μικρά νησιά και όχι μόνο. Από το 1951 μέχρι το 2011 στην Ελλάδα έχουν αδειάσει 51 μικρά νησιά. Το σύνολο της έκτασης το οποίο μας έχει αδειάσει είναι μεγαλύτερο από το άθροισμα της Πάρου και της Νάξου μαζί. Αν συνεχίσουμε έτσι τα επόμενα 20 χρόνια θα μας αδειάσουν άλλα 16 μικρά νησιά και το σύνολο της ακατοίκητης πλέον χώρας θα είναι μεγαλύτερο από το 30% της κατεχόμενης Κύπρου. Μπορεί κάλλιστα να καταλάβει κανείς ποιος είναι ο μεγαλύτερος εχθρός της, αν θέλετε, κατοικησιμότητας, παύλα ανάπτυξης των μικρών νησιών και γενικά των νησιών, γιατί αν θα μιλάμε για κατοικησιμότητα πρέπει να μιλάμε για ανάπτυξη και σε καμία περίπτωση δεν πρέπει να μιλάμε για επιδοτήσεις ώστε να έχουμε ζωή πάνω στα μικρά νησιά. Θα προσπαθήσω να είμαι σύντομος για να μπορέσω να δώσω περισσότερο χρόνο σε συζήτηση στη συνέχεια. Από το 1995, όταν είχαμε ξεκινήσει κάποιες πρωτοβουλίες μαζί με τον Γιώργο το Σταυρακάκη, μέχρι το 2024, αυτά που είχαμε ανακοινωθεί το 1995 δεν έχουν υλοποιηθεί το 2024. Ποια ήταν αυτά? Ήταν μια κύρια πολιτική που έλεγε ότι πρέπει η χώρα μας, η κάθε ευρωπαϊκή χώρα, να σηκώσει πιο ψηλά το θέμα των μικρών νησιών από το να τρέχουν τα μικρά νησιά να διορθώνουν πολιτικές της χώρας οι οποίες στην ουσία βλάπτουν τα μικρά νησιά. Εδώ σας έχω ένα παράδειγμα γενικά που έχει να κάνει με τις οριζόντιες πολιτικές. Έρχεται λοιπόν η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση και λέει βοηθήστε τους κοινωνικούς φορείς που έχουμε πάνω σε ένα νησί, δίνοντάς τους αυτοκίνητα να μπορούν να εξυπηρετήσουν τον πληθυσμό τους. Είναι αυτά τα βοήθεια στο σπίτι, τα αυτοκίνητα που ξέρουμε στη χώρα. Ναι, αλλά υπάρχουν μερικά νησιά που δεν κυκλοφορούν αυτοκίνητα. Κυκλοφορούν μόνο άλογα. Αυτά δόθηκαν το 1995 μέχρι το 2014. Δεν έχουν καταφέρει τα μικρά νησιά που δεν έχουν αυτοκίνητα και τα οποία όσο περνάει ο καιρός γίνονται όλο και περισσότερα, αφαιρούν τα αυτοκίνητα, να βρουν μια ανάλογη λύση να εξυπηρετηθεί ο κόσμος τους. Και δεν φτάνει μόνο να το αγοράσει το αυτοκίνητο, αλλά πρέπει και το ζώο να φάει. Δηλαδή, γιατί να υπάρχει κωδικός για τη βενζίνη, για να μην υπάρχει για το σανό. Μπορεί να μας φαίνονται αστεία αυτά τα πράγματα. Αλλά σκεφτείτε τώρα έναν ηλικιωμένο, ο οποίος μένει σε ένα ύψος που πρέπει να ανέβει να κατέβει 200 σκαλάκια και να μην υπάρχει τρόπος να εξυπηρετηθεί. Οι οριζόντιες πολιτικές λοιπόν δεν μπορούν να λύσουν αυτό το πρόβλημα καθόλου, όσο και να νιώθουμε ότι είναι σε εμάς εύκολο. Πάμε λοιπόν στην ακτοπλοεία και ερχόμαστε σε ένα από τα 3 θέματα που θέλουμε να συζητήσουμε. Και εδώ πάλι επί Γιώργου Σταυρακάκη είχαν γίνει κάποιες επερωτήσεις τότε στους Επιτρόπους και στον Αλμούνια στο εξής. Με δεδομένο ότι μπορεί να αποκτηθεί, προσέξτε λέω τη λέξη αποκτηθεί, πλοίο με ευρωπαϊκούς πόρους. Και αυτό μπει σε μια άγωνη γραμμή. Μπορεί η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση να επιδοτήσει το πλοίο το οποίο έχει ήδη αγοράσει. Και η απάντηση ήταν ναι. Ήταν ναι, είναι στην ευχέρεια της κάθε μιας χώρας να επενδύσει όσο μήκος και πλάτος θέλει σε τέτοια θέματα και μάλιστα έβαζε και τον όρο δημιουργώντας ένα εύλογο κέρδος. Σήμερα, επειδή είμαι σε μια επιτροπή του Υπουργείου Ναυτιλίας και έχει να κάνει με τις επιδοτήσεις, με το σύνολο της αδειοδότησης των ακτοπλοϊκών γραμμών στη χώρα, όχι μόνο τις επιδοτούμενες, σας λέω ότι κάθε φορά, κάθε μήνα που συνεδριάζουμε, μας λείπουν και περισσότερα πλοία. Δηλαδή, συνέχεια οι ακτοπλόοι τα παίρνουν και τα αλλάζουν, τα πλοία τα πάνε σε άλλες χώρες, γιατί δεν μπορούν να αντιμετωπίσουν αυτό το οποίο έρχεται και καλώς, αν θέλετε, έρχεται στα ευρωπαϊκά πλοία. Δηλαδή, η αλλαγή του καύσιμου, καταλαβαίνετε τι τεράστιο κόστος δημιουργεί, ώστε να μπορέσουμε να επενδύσουμε για ο ακτοπλός να κρατήσει τη δυναμική των πλοίων του που έχει σε μια χώρα και αν χρειαστεί να την αυξήσει. Μιλάμε δηλαδή ότι η μετατροπή ενός πλοίου σε αλλαγή καυσίμου είναι πάνω από το διπλάσιο και πολλές φορές τριπλάσιο του κόστους της αγοράς του πλοίου του προηγούμενου. Πάρα πολύ ωραία, τα συζητάμε αυτά τόσες φορές και τα λέμε στα όργανα τα ευρωπαϊκά, όμως έχουμε ένα πρόβλημα. Οι τεχνοκράτες οι οποίοι έχουν δίκιο, και θέλω αυτό να τονιστεί, μας λένε ωραία μας τα λέτε τα παραδείγματα, αλλά θέλουμε μια επιστημονική τεκμήριωση. Και ποια είναι αυτή? Οι δείκτες. Δείκτες λοιπόν στα μικρά νησιά δεν έχουμε. Όσες φορές το κουβεντιάζουμε σε ευρωπαϊκά φόρα, το αναγνωρίζουν και λένε ότι στηρίζουν την πρωτοβουλία αυτή. Όμως εμείς και μόνο εμείς, και όταν λέω εμείς εννοώ κοινωνία και επιχειρηματικότητα, δεν έχουμε κάνει το επόμενο βήμα που χρειάζεται να κάνουμε. Δηλαδή να κάτσουμε κάτω, αφήστε τις κυβερνήσεις. Οι κυβερνήσεις μπορεί να έχουν το δικό τους σκοπό, τις δικές τους υποχρεώσεις, τις δικές τους δεν ξέρω εγώ τι σκέψεις. Εμείς θα πρέπει να κάτσουμε κάτω και με δείκτες να συγκρίνουμε τη διαφορά που έχει ο Στεριανός Δήμος από τον νησιωτικό Δήμο σε όλα τα επίπεδα και ακόμα περισσότερο να μιλήσουμε για τη διπλή περιφερικότητα που είναι τα μικρά νησιά σε σχέση με τα μεγαλύτερα. Και κάτι άλλο. Πριν 2 χρόνια, 3 αν θυμάμαι καλά, Πρόεδρε Γιάννη Βαρδακαστάνη, εδώ σε μια δική σας εκδήλωση, επειδή μου άρεσαν πολύ τα μαθηματικά, είχε παρουσιάσει ο Γιώργος Ασονίτης, το θυμάται, ένα μαθηματικό τύπο που είχε να κάνει με τη φέρουσα ικανότητα των μικρών νησιών. Λέγαμε δηλαδή, σύμφωνα με τα κρεβάτια που έχει ένα νησί, μπορεί να σηκώσει με τις καρέκλες, καφετήρες κλπ. Σήμερα, νωρίτερα, ακούσαμε τη Σαντορίνη που έχει προχωρήσει σε μια επιστημονική τεκμηρίωση της μελέτης σχετικά με τη φέρουσα ικανότητα. Πληροφορηθήκαμε ότι και η περιφέρεια Νοτίου Αιγαίου δημιούργησε μια διεύθυνση που είχε να κάνει με την. Αν θέλετε, μην την πω ακριβώς γιατί έχουμε μια διαφορά, σχετικά με την φέρουσα ικανότητα που θα μπορούσε να έχει, ας πούμε, στον επιχειρηματικό κόσμο σε ένα νησί ή οποιαδήποτε επένδυση στη συνέχεια. Όμως πρέπει να πάρθει μια πρωτοβουλία και αυτή είναι η πρόκληση που απευθύνεται να βοηθήσει όσο μπορεί ο Γιάννης Βαρδακαστάνης, είναι να δημιουργηθεί ένα κέντρο νησιωτικής τεκμηρίωσης. Και να ξεκινήσουμε με απλά πράγματα. Πρώτα, να κάνουμε καταγραφή των προτάσεων που έχουμε καταθέσει και οι 2 φορείς τόσα χρόνια που βρίσκονται σήμερα. Δεν λέω για πιο δύσκολα πράγματα. Το 2015 έπεσε αυτή η πρώτη τραπέζι, μέχρι σήμερα δεν έχει γίνει τίποτα. Το δεύτερο είναι να δούμε και να καταγράψουμε ποια νέα προβλήματα έχουν προκύψει από τότε μέχρι σήμερα και τα οποία δεν προέρχονται από τις ανάγκες της αδυναμίας των μικρών νησιών, αλλά από την ευρωπαϊκή πολιτική. Δηλαδή, πώς η ευρωπαϊκή πολιτική, πώς όταν η Ευρώπη ενδυναμώνει τα μεγάλα κέντρα, χαλάει τη σχέση που έχει το μικρό κέντρο, το μικρό νησί με το μεγάλο κέντρο. Πώς δηλαδή δυσκολεύει κι άλλο την υπόθεση. Αντί να στρέψουν έναν επιχειρηματία να πάνε επενδύσει σε ένα μικρό νησί ή στη Λευκάδα, για να πάω και στις πρέσβη στην καταγωγή, βρισκόμαστε στο σημείο να λέει όχι στη Λευκάδα, γιατί πλέον το καύσιμο που θα καίω στην Αθήνα είναι πιο φθηνό από ό,τι στη Λευκάδα. Δηλαδή, χειροτερεύουμε, απομακρύνουμε συνέχεια τα νησιά και τα μικρά νησιά από τις μεγάλες πόλεις. Και το τρίτο, το οποίο εδώ θέλει από εμάς μια μεγαλύτερη, έτσι, αν θέλετε, κότσια, πώς μπορούμε να αξιολογήσουμε και να καταγράψουμε το βαθμό ικανοποίησης που είχαμε αυτών οι οποίοι μας διοικούν. Δηλαδή, είμαστε ικανοποιημένοι με τις πολιτικές που παίρνουν και αφορούν τον επιχειρηματικό και κοινωνικό κόσμο ενός μικρονησιού. Κλείνοντας, λοιπόν, δύο είναι τα βασικά θέματα. Το ένα είναι το ενίσχυση της ακτοπλοείας, χωρίς όμως αποκλεισμούς σε αυτά τα οποία μας έρχονται και θα τα βρούμε μπροστά μας. Και το δεύτερο είναι η δημιουργία καινούριων δικτών. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Θα είμαι στη διάθεσή σας να συζητήσουμε ό,τι θέλετε. Και να κλείσω να δώσω και μια δημόσια πρόσκληση σε όλους σας. Σας περιμένουμε στο 15ο Πανελλήνιο Συνέδριο Μικρών Νησιών που θα γίνει στη Μήλο, σε ένα από τα ομορφότερα νησιά της Ευρώπης, το πρώτο Σαββατοκύριακο του Οκτωβρίου. Σας ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ τον κύριο Κεχαγιόγλου. Πάντα καινοτόμος, όπως και σήμερα. Πάντα με προωθημένες ιδέες, και επειδή και εμείς αυτή τη φορά κάναμε μια προσπάθεια να βάλουμε κάποιους δείκτες, με μια μελέτη που η Δανάη Κρόκου θα μας την παρουσιάσει στη συνέχεια όσον αφορά τη δημογραφία των νησιωτικών επιχειρήσεων, θεωρώ και εγώ μια μεγάλη ευκαιρία για τον Γιάννη Βαρδακαστάνη, εάν μπορέσει να φτιάξουμε ένα μηχανισμό στην ΕΟΚΕ, θα είναι πρωτοπόρος, διότι η Κομισιόν δεν είναι πολύ ανοιχτή σε τέτοια ζητήματα, θα είναι πρωτοπόρος σε κάτι τέτοιο. Να φτιάξει ένα observatory, πάντως ένα μηχανισμό μόνιμο, ο οποίος θα εξετάζει αυτά τα ζητήματα, δηλαδή καταγραφής των προβλημάτων, τα δείκτες των νησιών, περισσότερο για να μπορούμε να τεκμηριώσουμε θέσεις. Γιατί όταν πάμε στην Κομισιόν μας λέει στοιχεία. Όταν είχαμε μία conference εδώ και χρόνια και μίλησε για το INSULEUR, η πρώτη ερώτηση που ήταν πόσες επιχειρήσεις εκπροσωπείς? Δεν ξέρω. Όλες τις νησιωτικές. Πόσες? Δεν ξέρω. Να η ευκαιρία τώρα. Αγαπητέ κύριε Πρόεδρε, κύριε Βαρδακαστάνη.
Μπορώ να έχω ένα δευτερόλεπτο? Συγγνώμη, χίλια συγγνώμη για την παρέμβαση. Απλά επειδή βλέπω ότι έχει μπει μέσα και ο Γενικός Γραμματέας του Υπουργείου Νησιωτικής Πολιτικής, ο Μανώλης Κουτουλάκης, έχει ενδιαφέρον να μπορέσει να είναι πιο τεκμηριωμένη και η κουβέντα να στραφεί σε αυτά που συζητάμε σαν αιτήσεις. Ευχαριστώ.
Now, I have the pleasure. First of all, I would like to apologize because we have invited the ambassador, the Greek ambassador in Belgium, very late. But, I mean, our colleague here, Irini Konstantinidou, told us, no, please invite her. She's very good. She will come. She will come. It's the first time that we have an ambassador at our...
All Greek ambassadors are good. Come on.
No, please. No, really. First, I mean, I would like to thank her for leaving out other commitments. I'm totally sure that she had other commitments in order to be here with us. And I know that she is a friend of Highlands also, because she is going to Lefkada, I mean, every summer for vacation. She will explain to us. Please, Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Έφυγα πριν από λίγο από ένα συνέδριο, σεμινάριο, που άρχισε στις 9 η ώρα και θα τελειώσει στις 3, για την προώθηση του ελληνικού πολιτισμού. Μου έκαναν μία μικρή φιλική παρατήρηση. Μα, λέει, κυρία Πρέσβη, δεν θα είσαστε εδώ, στη βαριά βιομηχανία της χώρας μας? Και απάντησα με βάση αυτά που ακούσαμε και πριν από λίγο από τους εξαιρετικούς προηγούμενους ομιλητές, τον κύριο Βαρδακαστάνη, τον κύριο Μπόρκ και τον κύριο Κεχαγιόγλου. Για τη χώρα μας πράγματι ο πολιτισμός είναι η βαριά βιομηχανία, τα νησιά μας και η αποφυγή ερήμωσής τους είναι θέμα επιβίωσης της χώρας μας. Υποσχόμενοι ότι θα ξαναπώ σε λίγο στο πολιτιστικό σεμινάριο και γι' αυτό θα με συγχωρήσετε για την αναχώρησή μου εντός ολίγου. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear presidents of INSULEUR, of the ECO section of the European Economic and Social Committee, of the Greek Small Islands Network. I'm happy to be here with you in my capacity of Ambassador of Greece, a country with thousands of islands and islets scattered far and wide across the Ionian Sea, the Aegean Sea, and the Eastern Mediterranean. This workshop focuses on a very interesting subject, the place of European islands in the framework of the European cohesion policy after 2027. And I would like to refer to the wise statement of the President of the European Economic and Social Committee that cohesion policy should be rooted in the principle that no one and no region be left behind. Insularity needs our special attention and care. It is a significant wealth of Europe in a geostrategic aspect, an enormous richness regarding quality of life of the European citizens. Yet, islands are vulnerable to the effects of climate change. They often face a real demographic decline and increasing challenges as regards infrastructure, pollution, waste management, civil protection against fires and flooding, serious issues that must be addressed by the European cohesion policy. Islands can be models and case studies for sustainable development and advanced technologies in the fields of environmental protection, digitalization, energy transition. New areas of economic activity open new opportunities for the islanders and could limit depopulation. The economic development of islands should not rely only on tourism. The cohesion policy of the European Union should support substantially the micro-enterprises and small and medium-sized enterprises of our islands. In the framework of our national Eco Islands initiative, a number of small Greek islands, Mr. Kehayoglu, are heading in the direction of smart, sustainable, and eco-friendly growth. The islands of Chalki and Tilos are already green islands, while Astipalea and Poros are on their way towards a zero-emission, waste-free, and energy-sufficient future. A balance must be struck between income generation and sustainable growth in the European islands. And the European cohesion policy after 2027 has an extremely important role to play in this respect. Thank you for your attention. Σας ευχαριστώ όλους πάρα πολύ και σας συγχαίρω για το workshop που διοργανώνετε.
Thank you, Ambassador. You are ambassador not only of Greece, but from now on, you are ambassador of islands also. Of all European islands, of course, of course, of course, of course.
The ambassador of Cyprus, of Malta,
Of course, of course.
all European islands.
Thank you.
Europe needs us.
Exactly. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you very much again for your presence here. Okay, so this is the end of this, first session. Yes, please, please. Please.
Θα μιλήσω ελληνικά. Άκουσα και το Λευτέρη και εσένα που αναφερθήκατε για την ανάγκη και για την τεκμηρίωση ίσως μέσω ενός παρατηρητηρίου. Δεν είμαι βέβαιος ότι η ΕΟΚΕ μπορεί να το δημιουργήσει η ίδια, θα το εξετάσουμε. Αυτό που μπορούμε να κάνουμε και θα το δούμε με τον Γιώργο το Μελέα που στηρίζει πάρα πολύ όλη αυτή την προσπάθεια και το ξέρετε, αν μπορούμε με γνωμοδότηση πρωτοβουλίας να το αναδείξουμε ως συνέχιση της περσινής νομοδότησης που ήμουν και εισηγητής για τα νησιά, τις ορεινές περιοχές, τις αεροκατοικημένες περιοχές της Ευρώπης, αν μπορούμε να έχουμε μια συνέχιση αυτής της νομοδότησης με κάποια καινούρια, η οποία να εστιάζει πιο πολύ σε αυτό που είπατε και κάτι άλλο. Θα το δούμε με τον Γιώργο και θα συνεργαστείτε για να δούμε πώς μπορεί να πάει παραπέρα και να είμαστε πρακτικά χρήσιμοι. Γιατί το σημαντικό που μένει είναι να είμαστε πρακτικά χρήσιμοι και πρέπει να ενώσουμε δυνάμεις, θα τα πούμε και αργότερα, όταν θα αρχίσει η διαπραγμάτευση για τη νέα προγραμματική περίοδο, η οποία δεν πρέπει να περιμένουμε κι εσείς να περιμένετε πότε θα εμφανιστούν τα νέα σχέδια των κανονισμών, γιατί αυτά αρχίζουν και ετοιμάζονται. Θα πρέπει η παρέμβαση να γίνει από τώρα, είναι δυνατόν, και στις αρμόδιες υπηρεσίες.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ, Πρόεδρε Βαρδακαστάνη. Χαίρομαι που πραγματικά βγαίνει και κάτι πρακτικό, κάτι πολύ χρήσιμο. Μακάρι πραγματικά να έχουμε μια καλή συνέχεια σε αυτή την πρωτοβουλία. Τώρα τελειώνουμε με την πρώτη συνεδρίαση και περνάμε στην τεχνική συνεδρίαση. Παρακαλώ τη Δανάη, παρακαλώ τους ομιλητές αν θέλουν να αποχωρήσουν. Όχι, δεν χρειάζεται. Γιώργο. Ναι, θα φύγει τώρα. Θα φύγει τώρα. Το έχεις βάλει?
If you don't mind.
Γιώργο, θα φύγει ο Πρόεδρος. Ναι.
Yes, this is the one.
Ναι, το ξέρω.
Ναι, δικό μου, το θέλω. Ναι. Όχι, αυτό πρέπει να ήταν. Γιατί δεν μ' άφησε να το κάνω από εκεί που καθόμουν.
Για να είναι κοντά εδώ.
οκ. I have no idea. Whatever you want. Can I just go there? Do we have to be here?
For me, it's the same. It's just that you make me sign when I have to change.
Oh, yes. It's important. Yes. Yes. It's nice, yeah.
I mean, then even.
Terry?
No. Okay.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
So, I give now the floor to the first speaker, Mrs. Danai Kroku, who is a project manager of INSULEUR. She will present us this study that I have already referred to, the demography of European island business. You have the floor, yes.
So, hello. A very quick disclaimer. I'm not a statistician, I'm not a statistics expert, but I did my best for this study. As the saying goes, actions speak louder than words, and by the same token, numbers speak louder than words. We know that our islands face great challenges, but we need to back up with actual numbers this argument. So, starting with the first slide. Why is the study important? So, it is the first comprehensive and systematic analysis of the insular economies within the European Union. And why? Because it actually provides detailed comparisons of company births and deaths, business units by legal type and sectoral activities across various insular regions. So the study highlights the crucial role that these economies play in promoting social and economic cohesion within the European Union. So, addressing challenges such as connectivity, infrastructure, deficits, and economic vulnerabilities is vital for integrating these regions into the broader EU economy. And moving on to the scope and the approach we followed. So, our study examined company births and deaths over a decade, and more precisely from 2012 to 2023. And the aim was to capture long-term trends and impacts. Therefore, we analyzed data on the number of registered businesses by type of legal status and sector of activity. The study covered insular regions in key EU countries such as Greece, Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, and Malta. Finally, we compared each insular region's data against their respective mainland counterparts and the EU average to provide a broader context. So here's, here you can see a few key insights, an overview of company births and deaths from this period, from 2012 to 2023. And we have a few conclusions for each of these countries. So we noticed a high entrepreneurial activity with significant tourism sector influence in Greece. In Italy, we noticed a steady growth in new companies driven by diverse sectors. In France, we noticed a modest growth, a stable business environment. In Spain, a strong tourism-driven growth with significant real estate development. While in Portugal, the growth focused on ecotourism and sustainable practices. Finally, in Malta, there is significant growth in financial services and gaming sectors. So here you can see the EU birth rate, the average, which is 9.5, and the EU death rate, which is 6.5. And you can see all EU countries, more or less, status. Yeah, we can move on, I think. Yeah. So, analyzing the legal status of companies from 2012 to 2023, we found that sole ownership and partnerships dominate the business landscape in most regions. We have limited liability companies. They're dominant and very significant, but particularly in Italy and Malta, while government and non-profit entities form a smaller portion. Now let's look at the dominant sectors of activity. You can see that tourism is a key economic driver across all these insular regions, significantly contributing to GDP and employment. Agriculture is also crucial, especially in regions like Corsica and Madeira. The services sector exhibits strong performance and resilience, while manufacturing plays a much smaller role. When it comes to the strengths, we have a few ones. Tourism remains a key economic driver, contributing significantly to GDP and employment across all regions. The services sector also shows strong performance and resilience. And we also have notable increases in company registrations in regions like the Balearic Islands and the Canary Islands, Sicily, Sardinia, and Malta, which indicate a vibrant entrepreneurial climate. Importantly, post-pandemic recovery demonstrates strong resilience, especially in areas heavily reliant on tourism. Additionally, investments in renewable energy and digital services are growing, significantly contributing to diversifying and sustaining these insular economies. And we also face challenges, which is the main reason we conducted the study. So despite these trends, there are significant challenges. The sector concentration in tourism results in high business mortality, with closures up to 12% higher during off-seasons. Insular regions also report 30% lower digital connectivity rates compared to mainland EU regions, which impacts business operations and growth. Also, the tourism sector faces 15% higher resource use than the EU average, which again increases pressure on local ecosystems. Current economic resilience on single sectors leads to fluctuations, highlighting the need for more economic diversification. So, in conclusion, insular economies are integral to the EU's diversity and resilience and to the EU cohesion, obviously, offering unique products, services, and experiences to all EU citizens. So, addressing these challenges and capitalizing on the strengths we mentioned will ensure the continued and ongoing contribution of the EU's economic and social fabric. So this is a very brief introduction to the study. You can access the full report, which is about 100 pages, by using this QR code, or you can also go to our website and you can find it in PDF format. So thank you for your attention.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Danai, and as the President said, congratulations. Really, it's I mean the first effort of let's say having a look into more detailed information, knowledge base, and from here to the construction of policies, there are a lot to do, but in fact we have the starting point now. I'm addressing now to Claire Helly from the CRPM, a representative of the Island Commission, in order to, as a key speaker, to give us, I mean, really the main points of the future cohesion policy of the European Union. Claire, you have the...
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. So I'm Claire Helly. I'm a Project and Policy Officer at the CPMR Islands Commission. First, I would like to thank INSULEUR, ESIN, and the European Economic and Social Committee for their invitation to this event. And indeed, I'm very happy to be here today with you to share our views regarding the next cohesion policy and islands, and to address this pressing question. Will European islands get the full attention they deserve in the new... Sorry. I don't know what happened. So this question, will European islands get the full attention they deserve in the new cohesion policy after 2027? And that's also indeed one of the main questions we discussed during our last Islands Commission General Assembly in the Azores in April. So as you know, today the European Union is currently at a pivotal point. We are in a post-elections context, which was not the earthquake we expected, but which still represents a significant change of political equilibriums in Europe. These recent changes are also reflected in the evolution of EU budget and cohesion policy. And today we are witnessing a tendency to re-centralize EU policy at national level, and we are also facing strong risks to see the ambition of cohesion policy lowered. And as you know, that would be extremely detrimental for peripheral territories, and especially islands, and ultimately for the European project as a whole. So as you know, the CPMR, and particularly through its Islands Commission, has been very active to amplify the voice of island regions in Europe, and we carry the strong convictions that territories and islands matter. We represent 18 island regions all across Europe and its different sea basins, including archipelagos, peripheral, and outermost regions. And we proudly recognize the inherent diversity and richness of each of these territories, each with their unique cultural heritage, their natural resources, and their growth potential. But nevertheless, we also fully acknowledge their shared struggle and aspirations that bind the islands together in their endeavor towards equal opportunities for their communities in terms of economic, social, and territorial development. And indeed, it's worth highlighting that islands are characterized by territorial discontinuity and limited natural resources in terms of land, in terms of water, and raw materials. And that this specific situation induces a high dependency on the mainland and external supplies, as well as additional costs, particularly regarding maritime and air transport. And these specificities are indeed recognized by EU law under Article 174 of the Lisbon Treaty, which states that due to the severe and permanent natural or demographic handicaps, insular territories must be paid particular attention when it comes to EU policies in view of reducing territorial disparities between regions. And in the ninth report on economic, social, and territorial cohesion, we see that it acknowledges these disparities, and it clearly states that these unique features can have a significant effect on Ireland's economic development, requiring a more specific approach. And figures from the same report evidence this worrying economic underperformance of island regions compared to the EU average. So let me quote 3 examples of that. So in all island regions, apart from Ireland, the GDP decreased from being 84% to 66% of the EU average from the period 2001 to 2021. Over the period 2011 to 2021, the employment rate of islands and outermost regions remained way below EU average of 75%, being for them 65% and 62% respectively. And finally, as evidenced by the report as well, the outermost regions were affected the most by the pandemic, and all of them are islands except for French Guiana, as you know. So, however, despite this legal recognition in the Article 174 and the statistical evidence available, which also was pointed out is not quite complete, this has not led to impactful, tangible actions until now. And therefore, the CPMR, along with many other partner organizations, as well as some EU institutions, has been strongly advocating in the past years for an exhaustive application of the Article 174 through the launch of an Islands Pact. So let me recall what we mean by Islands Pact. It would be in the same line as the Rural and the Urban Pact, and an Islands Pact should ensure a holistic approach and an insular proofing in all EU policies of high relevance to make sure that these policies are always adapted to the specific realities of islands. And moreover, in its implementation, this Islands Pact should eventually lead to the development of an EU agenda for islands. And as I mentioned, several EU institutions have echoed this demand and have also urged the European Commission to take action. So let me mention in particular, briefly, because I'm sure you all know this, the own initiative report on EU islands and cohesion policy of the European Parliament, which was carried in 2022 by Rapporteur MEP Omarjee. Then the opinion of the Committee of the Regions, enhancing cohesion policy support for regions with demographic and geographic handicaps, Article 174, by Rapporteur Maupertuis. And then, of course, the opinion of the European Economic and Social Committee, the main challenges faced by EU islands and mountainous and sparsely populated areas, by Rapporteur Varda Castanis, who is, of course, president of the session today. So, as CPMR Islands Commission, we have largely contributed to this report together with our member island regions, and we have also put a lot of efforts to further develop this idea of an Islands Pact, especially through our last final declarations. So let me quote in particular, in line with the European Parliament's report, the 2022 Gotland Declaration of the Islands Commission, which provided an overview of the main elements that should be considered by a long-term EU strategy for islands towards a holistic approach of island needs and a related adaptation to island specificities through an insularization of all EU policies. In 2023, on the eve of the Spanish presidency of the Council, the Palma Declaration intended to further reflect on the operational implementation of such agenda, with a special focus on strengthening cooperation among all different stakeholders dealing with insularity at different levels of governance. And finally, this year, we unanimously approved the Ponta Delgada Declaration in the Azores, urging again for a place-based approach of EU policies, leaving no region behind. And in this declaration, which was approved on the eve of the new European mandate, we propose a collective vision and a coordinated action to further advance the interests and the well-being of the islands' communities. So, as you know, in addition to our Islands Commission final declaration, the CPMR is also extremely attentive to the discussions around the future of cohesion policy. And indeed, our association has recently issued some key positions on this topic, and we have also signed an open letter to President von der Leyen, along with more than 100 regions, to ask for a meeting with her to clarify the future of cohesion policy. And so, in view of the new multi-annual financial framework, the CPMR advocates for a new generation of bold, of simplified, and of most effective policies based on the key principles which have contributed to shape not only cohesion policy, but the EU as a participatory democracy. So first, we believe that cohesion policy's budget and the overall partnership-led framework should be maintained. This has a unique potential to tackle structural challenges by investing in infrastructures, in skills, in innovation, and strategic technologies. Such areas are particularly important for island regions as they are key for their competitiveness and their resilience. In parallel, we believe that concrete actions are needed to increase the synergies among all the policies, the funds, programs, and instruments which have multiplicated over the recent years, so to increase the coherence and reduce the complexity linked to their use and their management. Third, we believe strongly that the subsidiarity principle should remain a core principle in the cohesion policy, with investments that are territorial in nature to remain under the control of the competent regional authorities, the cases of Gozo and Malta being exception on that matter. And finally, another crucial point I want to stress is the importance of safeguarding the territorial approach in the cohesion policy. Because indeed, what we have heard in the recent discourse is a global praise for the Recovery and Resilience Facility as a potential model for the future cohesion policy. However, it has been acknowledged that the RRF is a territorially blind instrument for national growth via budget support and reforms, and that a purely RRF-style cohesion policy, so in direct management and at national level, would only further exacerbate the divide between the most prosperous and the lagging regions. And finally, let me add one final point. When reflecting on the future of cohesion, it's essential to recall the key role of Interreg as a flagship for cohesion policy and a fundamental instrument for territorial cooperation all across Europe. And we consider that Interreg should continue to build on the current strengths, including the new strand D for outermost regions. But however, we have put forward some possible improvements as well to Interreg that are of specific relevance for islands. So for instance, in cross-border cooperation programs, we have a limit of cooperation for maritime frontier of 150 kilometers. This limit should be revised or applied in a more flexible manner because it does not always reflect the local reality in islands and outermost regions. And in addition, we also advocate for an increased EU support to foster cooperation between outermost regions and their neighbors, non-EU countries. As for them, it's commonly more challenging to engage due to the lack of resources and program ownership on their side. And so this could also be fostered, in our opinion, through better synergies between the different funds, such as ERDF, NDICI, and the OCTA decision. So now let me conclude my intervention with a kind of a provocative note, because in view of the current context, we should not only be asking if islands will get fully recognized in the upcoming multi-annual financial framework, but we should be asking also if there will still be a cohesion policy as we know it, rooted in its fundamental principles. And indeed, today, we are facing an actual risk of seeing an overall regional disparities increase. So we should all be concerned about it, and even more if we think about islands, because this would be particularly detrimental to these territories if no specific insular proofing is set in place. So we need to pursue our collective mobilization, building on the important work of the past years to safeguard cohesion policy and its fundamental principle of subsidiarity, multi-level governance and territorial approach. And we should ensure that the new European Commission takes seriously into account the renewed calls in favor of a better acknowledgement of insularity through a pact for islands. So we count on your precious support, and starting from INSULEUR and ECONOMIES, to keep on working together towards this goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire, for these very interesting thoughts and proposals, and we take really in consideration. I try to imagine how would be the discussion 200 years ago on the same issue. There would no discussion at all, because at the moment, islands were the centers of the economy, or there would be a discussion of the strong players. Islands at the moment were the strong players. And we would discuss at the moment how to, let's say, help continent in their economic needs. But now, with the globalization, the new, let's say, economies and the urbanization and all these, characteristics of the economy, the problem is there. And the problem is the vulnerability of islands, the economic vulnerability of islands. Not only the European Union, all over the world. And indeed, in the United Nations, they have a vulnerability index regarding the SEEDs, the island states. So they have, maybe we need something like that also in the European Union. Let's see. Now I'm turning to the European Commission. The European Commission that, to tell the truth in the beginning, was not very, let's say, friendly to our thoughts. But with the discussions, with the forums, with the public hearing, all these kind of things, really we have a lot of things on the table now. I remember some years ago we did a same public hearing here in Brussels, in the same building, on energy. And at the moment, Dominique Ristori, who was the General Director in Energy, told us, look, we will work on a project for islands, on energy. And really, not only there is a project, there are money, there is a permanent secretariat on alternative energy for islands in Brussels. So we wait something like that now in the cohesion policy and other policies. Please, Benoit Nadler from the European Commission, DG Regio, you have the floor to tell us your thoughts.
Thank you. I'm not sure I will be committing on anything today, but at least sharing with you some reflection on the future. So the first, you will mention the ninth cohesion report. We have, as the H1, some dedicated chapters on territories, including islands, which provides a bit of intelligence on the challenge at stakes. As you mentioned beforehand, of course it doesn't suffice. We have also data shortage linked to the very granularity sometimes of the islands, and we also, I think it's a common objective for Commission member state and yourself to also develop, data intelligence and analysis of challenge at stake. What I want to stress perhaps from the cohesion report is, besides the usual statement that we know, the factors that islands face difficulty in terms of accessibilities, remoteness, additional cost, specific energy challenges. The ninth cohesion report identified a set of challenge for the ongoing and for the future, which all may trigger further territorial disparities. Demographic challenges, geopolitical situation, the climate transition, climate change. My point is all of them concern islands. So, meaning that you have demographic challenges, and one of the demographic decline in the EU is mostly triggered by low birth rate, but it's sometimes exacerbated in some territories by lack of attractiveness and out migration. And this is really one of the issues for islands. On the geopolitical situation, we also mentioned in the inclusion report, we have, of course, the eastern border, but the southern border, including islands, are also facing important migration challenges and pressure, which also undermine their potential and attractiveness. Climate change, obviously, I'm not going to develop. I mean, we know the situation, and also climate transition. If the transport costs are increasing, peripheral region, including island region, are also most exposed and will be also undermine their competitiveness. So there's a lot of challenge on the plate. A need to increase perhaps resilience to crises. You mentioned that islands have been quite resilient to the crisis, yet the very high dependence on tourism sector is of course a weakness. Previous speakers mentioned the need, of course, to diversify the economies. And that's also, for me, linked to the demographic challenges as a way to be able to offer quality jobs, in particular to the youth and young population, so that they stay or you attract others. And perhaps tourism may not be capable of offering this kind of opportunity. So diversification also, my point, as a demographic component as well. Based on that, our report for the future, so I will come back a bit to the future cohesion policy from what we can say for the time being. Stress two elements which are important for, I guess, for islands. A, that the importance of place-based approach. Islands are quite diverse. As my colleague for CPMR stated, so if we take out Ireland, which is a bit distorting the data, the situation is not very rosy, but yet quite heterogeneous between different islands. So, and the capacity to develop strategies and to trigger some change may be also sometimes hindered by low institutional capacity. And that's something we are also contemplating to promote in a more comprehensive manner in the future. Now, also, if I want to be a bit provocative, so we have a set of instruments already on the current cohesion policy, like territorial instruments are available. We have the policy objective 5, we have territorial strategies, we have, previous speaker has said that we need, and I fully concur to that, to diversify our economy. But that's already possible. I mean, what prevents you to do so with the cohesion policy? This current program and the previous one, what it has not been done? Why still most of investment go to tourism? So it's also a question for you. We can appeal. You can appeal to cohesion policy, but already the many instruments, available, enable you to undergo those necessary change. So I heard also the previous speaker calling for a specific island pack or agenda. Why not? You know that we have already the territorial agenda covering islands. We have urban agenda, which is intergovernmental initiative, not a commission initiative, implemented through partnership. Calling for island proofing, we are developing territorial impact assessments for some, whenever relevant, for some policy initiative, covering specific territories. There's a call for world proofing. We can have island proofing, but multiplying this kind of singularity, I think we should perhaps better use the current instruments and the territorial impact instrument before multiplying. So reflection for you. On the future, some element of the timetable first. The Commission shall adopt the proposal for the next MFF by 30th of June 2025, so more or less in 1 year time, and it may be accompanied or they may come a bit later by the specific proposal for fund-specific regulation. That's an important step. We have identified in the NAS cohesion report some element, some direction which are contemplated, which are indeed a bit inspired by the RFF, but I will model, but I will nuance it afterwards. We believe that investment alone do not suffice, and we need a combination with reform to make sure that investment are effective. We believe that our resources, which will be most likely limited in the future, I mean, the budgetary equation of the next MFF will be a bit tricky, and the current situation where there was abundant EU funding, if you combine cohesion policy and RFF, of course, will not repeat in the future. And we need to make sure that EU resources are effectively spent and are effective in achieving some impact. In that regard, I open the bracket. So we also cohesion policy, we're in a difficult situation now with a very low implementation rate, and that, of course, doesn't really help us in making our case also among Commission services. And in this regard, I remind that the most difficult discussion always in the MFA discussion are taking place between Commission services. When the proposal are on the table, this is a different dynamic, and usually the proposal are making their way through. So perhaps my suggestion for the future is, of course, you can prepare some position for the influencing the next Commission proposal, but what is quite more important is to also prepare yourself for the next programming based on the challenge identified. I mentioned some of them, like demographic, climate transition, capacity building. Indeed, also transnational cooperation is important, in particular for Greek islands. Identify the bottleneck you're facing in implementation, so that also we can promote together the reforms needed to overcome those obstacles. So this should also concentrate, for me, I mean, focus your energy and support in the next months, not only trying to influence the proposal, which is fine, but also and make the best use of the current instruments which are available in 21-27. We still have a long way to implement those programs with regard to the current implementation rate. So that's thoughts for reflection.
Thank you very much, Benoit Nadler, for this really open-minded position, really non-formal at all, but very, very rich on thoughts. We will take in consideration your proposals. Now, I'm giving the floor again to President Vardakastanis. I know very well that the ECO section is working very hard on this cohesion policy, not only on islands, but on other aspects, as, for example, the new enlargement, etc., etc. So please, President Vardakastanis, you have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to inform you that we are working on a resolution for the future of cohesion policy that will be presented and adopted in the plenary assembly of the European Economic and Social Committee on the 11th of July. And that is the initiative of the ECO section, agreed with the President of the Committee, Mr. Ropke, not only about the content of the cohesion policy itself, but also about the place of cohesion policy in the Commission. Because probably you have been aware of a possible move of cohesion policy into the, let's say, portfolios of the President of the Commission. And that is, if that is the case, that is not a good development. It will not be a good development, and we need all to speak. Now I will say a few things that probably will allow for more reflection about the content of the cohesion policy of the future. The report of the high-level group on the future of cohesion policy provides a very comprehensive list of recommendations as a basis for discussion about the next programming period and the future of cohesion. I will highlight some of them, in particular to enrich the discussion and to give some more further points for reflection. Cohesion policy should ensure that no one is left behind. That has become a real motto. We hope it does not stay that way. Cohesion policy should evolve into a systemic and dynamic policy that taps with the EU's untapped economic potential, especially in less developed and vulnerable areas such as islands, enhancing development and competitiveness throughout the continent, and encouraging the generation and spread of economic activity. Cohesion policy should address the main structural challenges of the EU, namely low development, long-term economic stagnation, and lack of opportunities across all regions, and disparities between and within regions and society. Cohesion policy should change the way it works to streamline its administrative procedures, reduce paperwork, and adopt more efficient approaches to simplify processes and make them more user-friendly. Preserving and boosting the key role of territories, social partners, and civil society organizations during the Cohesion Fund negotiations and implementation by strengthening the role of partnerships. In addition, the European Code of Conduct on Partnership and monitoring committees need to be strengthened to ensure that civil society is properly involved. Cohesion policy has to be specialized, to be applied to the most vulnerable people or groups, and this specialization must also be reflected at the financial level. Cohesion policy and its targets should be integrated into the European semester process. Moreover, the new economic governance framework suggests that the expenditures incurred as part of the national co-financing of EU programs will not be restricted by the expenditure rule. The future cohesion policy should be ready for the new challenges of a 27 member state union in view of the future challenges we are going to face in so many fronts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Vardakaranis, to be so brief and to the point, and for all your efforts in this, let's say, issue of cohesion policy, and after, especially after 2027. Now, before giving the floor, I think our Secretary General in Greece, Mr. Manolis Koutoulakis, is online. But before giving the floor according to the program, to the agenda, the floor is for the audience, either for physical presence or online. So, please, if you have questions or position on the issue. Any volunteer? No? So everything was clear. Okay, so, huh? Okay, good. So now I give the floor to Mr. Koutoulakis in order to, let's say, give a response to one of the points of Benoit Nagler as far as the, let's say, implementation of the cohesion policy in Ireland. Mr. Koutoulakis, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm...
Yes, excellent.
Okay, maybe there's no camera, don't know.
No camera, in fact, indeed.
Camera. Something, probably from the moderator, you have to do something.
No, it's from your side. You have to activate the camera from your side.
Apologies, I will try. Apologies.
Yes.
Okay.
We see you also.
Sorry, apart from being the General Secretary, I'm a general IT supporter of myself. Thank you so much. First of all, I think I will continue in English for practical reasons, and in any case, having the opportunity to share directly my views and my opinions with all the friends and colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank you all for the invitation. I would like to thank President Vardakastanis for the invitation and hosting, but also the committees, but also his personal support in the IELTS agenda. And it is always not just a pleasure, but it's always a productive way of sharing ideas, sharing opinions, but also specific recommendations. And the role of the committee is quite important under the new environment of dialogue that we have conducted and we're having the last years. And I would like to thank you for that. Also, thanks to the President and the Board of INSULEUR. I think we have created an alliance with Josef Borg and also the Vice President, Vangelis Messinias, and all the island chambers. And thank you all for your support. I think I was prepared to speak about more specific things, but I think the dialogue and the positions that we have listened from the Commission, from CPMR, but also in the introductory remarks were very, very specific, that is leading me to discuss a little bit about what is coming and what we have to face together in the near future about the cohesion policy. Of course, I will try to do a reflection and have a reflection on the cohesion policy in the Greek insularity, but also in Greece generally. And we always have to be and have in mind that when we're speaking about the cohesion policy, we have always to clear about the role of SMEs. And since our audience is related to the islands entrepreneurship, allow me always to support and stand in the national and the public dialogue about the role of SMEs in the economic, but also the social cohesion in the small islands. Let me stress that out. Of course, it is related to the demographic stresses and all the others, but at the end of the day, having viable and sustainable economies is related to an economic activity that gives jobs, offers jobs and income. That is the most crucial role and the reason of staying in the islands, apart from other critical functions and infrastructures and other stuff. So I stated my opinion, how important it is for the local economy to keep things rolling. And of course, it is related to specific central or regional or local policies that create environments that are making the environment familiar for the habitants. So this is the general overview. Allow me to start from the 9th cohesion report, because we have to be very specific in our references, since we are facing big changes, and we are, I strongly believe, in an optimistic way, that we are in a transformative period for the cohesion policy, but also the way that we look about the European cohesion. Let's not forget that cohesion policy was and still is one of the most critical European policies, critical for the convergence, the regional, facing the regional disparities, that after more than 40 years of cohesion policy, we are still facing issues. We have to be honest. Of course, there is progress, but we have to be sure that this cohesion policy, that the fundamental principles of that policy is clarified clearly in the treaty, in the Lisbon Treaty, and in every treaty. We have to make sure that the implementation is at the same level of optimism like in the treaty. Treaty is very clear also, but it doesn't matter what the treaty says if the member states or the Commission or the other institutions are not following that pathway, and this is the clear pathway. So the recent publication of the 9th cohesion policy report, I think, was very clear and gives us great floor for discussion. Of course, we need discussions that need to end somewhere, not endless discussions about discussing the same things, but actually helping us to take decisions. The 9th cohesion report is speaking about promoting a more balanced territorial development, which seems to be a necessity. So I think one of the most important priorities that we need to stress out clearly, not only in declarations and opinions and resolutions, but we have to make sure that on a political level, either through the Council or the Commission, has a clear mandate about applying the territorial justice, allow me to use this terminology, in order to clear out what we need in the islands. And yes, we need it is the time to formulate on a European level a more clear policy for the islands, not just for any kind of territory like all the others. I think the island territories, and through the declarations and the public opinions expressed by CPMR, INSULEUR, the Small Islands Network, but also the committee with Mr. Vardagastanis, but also the European Parliament, they are very clear. We don't need other resolutions. We need political statements that will be translated into the regulations, and making sure that the regulations are giving us instruments to apply in every member state. Islands policy is not just of the interest of some member states and only Greece or the South. I think we can realize the wealth, but also the importance for the European economy that is related to the islands' economies. Of course, tourism is the most clear and the most direct that we can think of, but it's not just that. I think the islands, the European islands in general, but also in particular areas like the Aegean archipelagos, but also in the north, play also a critical role in terms of the borders of the European Union, and especially in this period that we are discussing fundamental principles of the cohesion of the European Union. We strongly believe that island territories plays their own role in that overall goal. So this is quite important. And of course, we have to face a triple transition for that. So the pathway for all of us discussing, and I will give you some examples from the Greek islands, but also from our experience from the cooperation with other member states, we have to face a triple transition. And I was very happy to hear from Mr. Kechagioglou, Lefteris Kechagioglou, but also other speakers discussing about specific issues about the demographic pressures. And yes, I agree that we are facing demographic, not distinction, but I will try to be a little bit more realistic. We have some critical issues of reduction of the population, but not equally distributed this demographic pressure. We have to make sure in which areas and why this is happening. For example, in the south of the Aegean, we had an increase in the population, especially in the small islands. So we have regional specificalities that we need to discuss. Of course, maybe in the north, in the Adriatic and the north of Ionian archipelagos, yes, we're facing such issues, and some smaller islands in the North Aegean. So it's not a rule that happens everywhere. We have to emphasize on the smaller islands in order to realize what is causing this demographic movement. But we have to face at the same time the triple transition, the digital, the green, and the demographic that is constantly related to the economic structure that I told you. I think the most important is what the cohesion report also is saying, but also the high-level group and the high-level report that is was the base of the discussion about the future cohesion policy that we are studying very carefully. We participated in the consultation as a member state, but also as a ministry. But we strongly believe that we have a new rationale for the place-based policies. And you are all quite experienced, and you remember that the territorial agenda in the European Commission was very active after the Fabrizio Barcia report, as you know. That was the first study that emphasized on the territoriality and the need for taking into consideration the territorial aspects of our policy. I think we have now the experience to present and discuss about the place-based approaches in the cohesion policy in a more mainstream way. I think we have the experience of the implementation of ITIs, of CLLDs, and other approaches that, yes, the European Commission gave as instruments to the member states, but now we need to evaluate if the way that we applied that in the member states was effective enough. So in an open way and discussing about these approaches, I strongly believe that the place-based approaches that we had the last two programming periods gave us the necessary platform to discuss what works and what doesn't work. Of course, we had the smart specialization strategies, we had the CLLDs, ITIs, but also recently the Just Transition Fund. I'm not quite sure that was effective. We had in terms of indicators, we have the outputs, but the outcomes I'm not very sure that we can calculate. And I'm not very sure that the coordination of all these instruments was effective. And this is not, a problem of the Commission only, but also of the way that the member states are applying all these instruments. That's why we need a balanced coordination that should start from Brussels. And I will be very clear in that, because we have a way forward. And as President Vardakastani said, we don't have to wait till the regulation is in public consultation. We have to act now, and you all know that we are working on that. Specifically for Greece, I will speak for Greece. We have a national framework that works exactly for that reason, and it was born, if I may say, it was born for these cases, in order to support and justify the need for more Europe and more European cohesion policy that is not indicated by political movements, but is indicated and is guided by the real need of bringing places that are left behind. And they are left behind not because of decisions on a national level, but we have to make sure that the cohesion policy of the European Union is not just a cohesion policy of the European Commission, but also of the member states. And this is a balance that we have to keep together. Commission is doing great things. We have to be also on a pace that makes sense. European Commission is very supportive in that, especially in Greece. You all know that the initiative of GR Eco Islands is something that we can follow, but we need to do more and faster. And I'm quite sure that this can be applied to other member states. That's why I'm telling you that we had the experience in the 2 programming periods of how cohesion policy worked or not, and now we can do something quite different and more mainstream on a political level. In the past, for the urban agenda, as the colleague from the Commission said, we have the experience of how it worked on a political level. Of course, it's not of the Commission's initiative, but it's a partnership that is related to the regulations. You all know that the maturation of the discussion and this dialogue that is quite active because of your role and our role, allow me to say that also the member states through the governments are pressing things now, maybe more than in the past, but we have to do that on a collaborative way. We need to be very clear with CPMR, but also INSULEUR and the Small Islands Network. We are very clear. We need an EU Islands Pact, not just to have another place, another platform to discuss on a political level. We need to realize the real value of the islands, but at the same time, I will be very specific, and this is something that we will work together. In the past, the regulation of ERDF said that at minimum 5% of the funds should be dedicated for urban projects. This is correct, and I'm quite sure that all the member states, at the end, they didn't offer just the minimum of 5%, but they have exceeded that. And this was very good because the urban plays, but also the cities plays a critical and crucial role for the European economy. I'm quite sure that we can convince ourselves first, and then all the other stakeholders, that we can discuss about a minimum funding of ERDF, but also ESF, the European Social Fund, to tackle the demographic and social issues that are of great importance in the islands, and yes, ask for a minimum funding for the islands territories, along with other specific territories. I think this is the idea. And it's not just about the money, it's just giving a better recognition, and island proofing is not enough. We don't need island proofing, just island proofing. It's something more important. It has to do with the fundamental principles that still doesn't work for the European Union, the European market. We still face an equivalent that is still on a negative way for the islands. It's the equivalent of the transportation of goods, of investments, of people. We still pay more for being there. The enterprises, the SMEs are still paying more. The cost of insularity is something that we can measure. So we have to create the necessary support for the European Commission, but Commission is coming after. We have to be very pressing in a way, but in a way that we are supporting the governments, and through the governments, the member states, through the institutions, the Council, and all critical institutions to discuss about this not idea. It's not just an idea anymore. It's something very specific. We worked very closely with our stakeholders. We need an EU Islands Pact based on the same idea of better regulation, better funding, and better knowledge. I think we have the better knowledge, and we have built on a very concrete way the better knowledge in order, yes, to create indicators. Lefteris Kechagioglou was very, very clear, but he knows very well that we can create the necessary platform for measuring things. We have the data. The problem is that we never measured them in a way that makes sense for the islands. And this is something that we are working with DG Reform under a very, very important study. It's the first multi-country project of TSI, using TSI as a technical support instrument of DG Reform, working with Croatia and Sweden, and along with OECD, we're working specifically on that. The chambers, the island chambers and other stakeholders have participated in meetings. We have other meetings now. It's an ongoing project that will create a specific direction of how things should work on a multi-level governance for the national level, but also to indicate how an index of insularity should be introduced based basically on the cost of insularity for business, for doing business, which means not doing business like big investments, but having an operation that makes sense, that is viable, keeping alive an enterprise in a small island, which is more critical than, it is equally critical, to be honest, equally critical than keeping 100 business in a small neighborhood in my city. This is the impact that we should emphasize. And this is what we work with the island chambers, with the Islands Barometer. It's a survey that we have concluded. You remember last year in our public hearing again, I was able to present you part of the first results. We have concluded the survey, which is the base now, the main, if I may say, weapon for our battle to convince about the need for specific entrepreneurship funding schemes on a local level. Yes, we can create under the current circumstances and regulations, we can create territorial specific instruments, but we don't need to do that in a way that we have to convince ourselves. We need the European direction to be very clear in political, but also operational documents. I strongly believe that the partnership that we are having on a personal but institutional level should continue. Mr. Vardagastanis, Joseph Pork from INSULEUR, with CPMR, of course, we hope that the Island Commission will continue the great work, and also with Lefteris Kechagioglou and the European Network for the Small Islands. Please, just a proposal. I would like to invite you soon enough to have a meeting with OECD, because we're discussing on these specific things that will lead in the acceptance of a specific set of indicators critical for measuring the cost of doing business in the islands. And we will be open to discuss about the methodology, the data that we need, and the support of the island chambers for surveys like the barometers that we did. But also the study that INSULEUR did, big thumbs up. It is a great work, Giorgos Asonitis, and I think it should continue in a way that we can combine that with surveys like Barometer in order to make sure that we have the qualitative and the quantitative results that we need. This was my intervention, hopefully creating the environment. I'm quite optimistic and sure that we can present proposals that make sense for the Commission. And yes, the European Islands Pact is something that we need, but till then, we can succeed many things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary General, for this very, very interesting and very rich, let's say, intervention. There are a lot of questions to answer. The panelists, yes, the panelists are here, let's say, to respond to some, let's say, questions and issues. I know that, I mean, if you take islands not only on the economic, I mean, side, but also on other, let's say, political and geostrategic, let's say, aspects, islands are, I mean, in the front of all problems, either refugee problem or other political problems. Islands offer huge economic maritime zones and continental shelves to the member states and to the European Union, of course. So they are, let's say, the outer limits of Europe all over around the sea, the seas, Mediterranean, etc., etc. So it's a very complex issue. I mean, the insularity, but we have to think on that. Okay, now I give the floor to any that's willing to speak.
Okay, I can.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just give. Thank you, Mr. Koutsoulakis, for your appreciation also of what INSULEUR is doing. I think that the initiative taken by George to have this report, which Danai Kroku prepared, will serve as a basis for a start on having business demography on islands, which is something that now can be measured. And we think this good initiative which INSULEUR, with all its limitations, is trying to put forward. I would also like to recall that we would not be spectators in this question of having islands on the agenda of Europe. In fact, as we have already stated during our meeting earlier on this morning, we have written to Mr. Charles Michel, President of the European Council, so that we will not be, we'll be active rather than proactive on the matters where islands are interested. Thank you.
Thank you, President Borg. You ask the floor, please? Please, yes. Your name and...
Θα μιλήσω στα ελληνικά. Ονομάζομαι Έτμοντ Γκούρι. Είμαι εκπρόσωπος αλβανικής διασποράς στην Ελλάδα. Ζω στην Ελλάδα τουλάχιστον 28 μόνιμα χρόνια, πάνω από 30 αν το πάρουμε συνολικό. Πλέον μιλάμε για αλβανική διασπορά. Άκουσα με προσοχή όλες τους προμιλούντες και την τοποθέτηση του Γενικού Γραμματέα. Θέλω να, επειδή με το Λευτέρη, με το πρώτο του Δίκτυου Κοινωνιστών μιλάμε συνεχώς, θέλω να πω δύο θέματα όσο αφορά και ακούστε μόνο 3 φορές το θέμα της μετανάστευσης. Τα νησιά δεν είναι το τελευταίο σύνορο, είναι το πρώτο σύνορο. Επομένως, αφού είναι το πρώτο σύνορο, είναι πολύ λυπηρό να ακούσω από τον πρόεδρο του Δίκτυου Μικρών να έχουν αδειάσει τα τελευταία χρόνια 50 νησιά. Δεν ξέρω γιατί συζητάμε τότε εδώ πέρα τα μικρά νησιά. Sorry, εγώ έτσι το βλέπω σαν ως πλέον πολίτης της Ελλάδος που ζω σε αυτή τη χώρα. Τα νησιά είναι για μένα και θεωρώ ειδικά για την Ελλάδα είναι καμάρι, είναι ένα κομμάτι που εκπέμπει πολιτισμό και δέχεται χιλιάδες και εκατομμύρια τουρίστες ανά στον κόσμο. Άρα λοιπόν θεωρώ αδυναμία και νομίζω ανικανότητα της ελληνικής πολιτείας, ιδιαίτερα της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης, να μην μπορέσει να κρατήσει αυτόν τον κόσμο και ιδιαίτερα να μην συμβάλλει να κρατήσει εκεί τον κόσμο. Είτε αυτοί είναι Έλληνες πολίτες, είτε είναι μεταναστευτικής καταγωγής, διότι υπάρχει και ένας μεγάλος πληθυσμός μεταναστευτικής καταγωγής που ζουν σε αυτά τα νησιά, που προσφέρουν και είναι χρόνια εκεί. Επομένως, είναι ένα κομμάτι που θα πρέπει η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση να το λάβει υπόψη, όλοι οι φορείς που εμπλέκονται και ιδιαίτερα και η ελληνική πολιτεία, ώστε πλέον να μην μιλάμε για άδειασμα νησιών, αλλά να μιλάμε για ανάπτυξη που να ξεκινάει από τον άνθρωπο και από τους πολίτες που ζουν, που κρατάνε αυτά τα νησιά. Εγώ αυτό ήθελα να πω και ευχαριστώ την προσοχή.
Ευχαριστούμε για την τοποθέτηση, πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα τοποθέτηση. Any other from the audience? From online? No. See. Any reaction from the panel?
Δεν θα ήθελα να ξαναπάρω το λόγο, αλλά με προκαλείτε. Όχι, εννοώ ο χρόνος που υπάρχει διαθέσιμος, αυτό να έχει τίποτα προσωπικά. Ας ξεχάσουμε την Ελλάδα, ας ξεχάσουμε την Κύπρο εδώ, όσους βλέπω, ας ξεχάσουμε τη Μάλτα κλπ. Και ας μιλήσουμε ως Ευρωπαίοι. Και ας προσπαθήσουμε να δούμε την Ευρώπη 20-30 χρόνια μετά. Μπορούμε να φανταστούμε σε ποια κατάσταση θα είναι ο επιχειρηματικός κόσμος και ποια θα είναι η σύνθεση των επιχειρηματιών και των εργαζόμενων στην Ευρώπη. Έχουμε ανάγκη από, αν θέλετε, τρίτες χώρες, να εκμεταλλευτώ λίγο, να πάω λίγο σχετικά με το προηγούμενο που άκουσα από τον συνάδελφο τον Έντμον. Μπορούμε να φανταστούμε τα μικρά νησιά να έχουν, τα νησιά γενικά, μια πλήρη εκμετάλλευση όλων των δυνατοτήτων της καινοτομίας που μπορεί να δώσει η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση. Εμείς θα μπορούσαμε, γιατί ζούμε σε αυτά και το βλέπουμε σε καθημερινή και φαντάζομαι κάποια στιγμή και οι κυβερνήσεις και στο βορρά και στο νότο, γιατί δεν θέλω να ξεχωρίσω νότο ή βορρά, γιατί το ίδιο ισχύει παντού, με διαφορετικά προβλήματα ο καθένας τους. Τι φταίει που αυτό που έχουμε σαν σχέδιο και το κουβεντιάζουμε κάθε χρόνο σε 10 διαφορετικά πάνελ δεν προχωράει στην ουσία? Το πρώτο είναι αυτό που είπε και ο Γενικός Γραμματέας ο μόνος ο Κουτουλάκης. Να σημειώσουμε ότι είναι η δεύτερη ή τρίτη φορά, και αυτό έχει πετύχει επί πλάτες ασονίτη, να το πω έτσι. Και ήταν και η προσωπική μου έτσι, πίεση που έκανα πάρα πολλά χρόνια στο Γιώργη, επειδή ήξερα, του έλεγα πάρα πολύ καλά τι σημαίνει Κουτουλάκης, μην τον εχάσουμε. Έτσι δεν λέγαμε, είναι αλήθεια αυτό. Τι είναι αυτό λοιπόν που κάνει τώρα τις κυβερνήσεις που έχουν μαζί τους, και τους έχω και ήδη. Αριστερά μου έχουμε την Κομισιόν, δεξιά έχουμε την κυβέρνηση, έχουμε την κοινωνία, έχουμε την επιχειρηματικότητα. Είναι αυτό που λέει ο Μανώλης στην τετραπλή έλικα. Τι είναι αυτό που κάνει το καράβι και δεν τρέχει? Στην ουσία αυτό είναι το πρόβλημά μας. Δηλαδή ψάχνουμε να βρούμε συνέχεια να διορθώσουμε πολιτικές, να βάλουμε νέους στόχους, να αλλάξουμε τους στόχους, να μετρήσουμε δείκτες. Τι είναι αυτό? Και το ερώτημα δεν είναι τι είναι αυτό. Το ερώτημα είναι εμείς κάνουμε αυτά που πρέπει να κάνουμε? Μπορούμε να δούμε δηλαδή, αν θέλετε, τους τόπους μας 20 χρόνια, 30 χρόνια, 50 χρόνια μπροστά και να φανταστούμε τι σήμερα δεν κάνουμε σωστά για το τότε? Δεν ξέρω αν έχει απάντηση, απλά είναι ένα ρητορικό, αλλά είναι η εμπειρία στον τρόπο που παλεύει τόσο καιρό και πετυχαίνουμε ένα και χάνουμε 2-3 στην πορεία. Σας ευχαριστώ.
This is one of the point of Benoit Nadler also, what islands do, I mean, by themselves in order to, let's say, develop, etc., etc. But anyway, yes, please.
Not just a rapid reaction on the suggestion made through the proposal for promoting Island Pact. There is a suggestion to have a minimum earmarking of funding for islands. Clearly, we have some doubt on that. I mean, the direction for the future is, and for several reasons, the direction for the future is to have more flexibility in the use of funding, and multiplying the earmarkings doesn't go that direction, A. B, most of the island regions are already less developed regions, so already receive a quite substantial amount, at least per capita, of resources. So just there will be even no added value of creating the ceilings, which will be even below the reality. And the third, of course, risk is the Pandora box, and with mountains will come and all the territories asking for their earmarking. So altogether, I believe that there is a clear consensus on the challenge ahead, and the discussion have identified them, you know. There is clear need, I also believe, for enhanced attention to island, but also perhaps sharing experience in addressing the challenge we identified, in sharing good practice, and in promoting economic diversification strategies. And on that, I guess the Commission can help. But I just want to make the point that earmarking is not really, at least from the Commission, something that we will be contemplating at all.
Good morning again. I prefer to speak in Spanish, if you don't mind. Yes. Yo quisiera, hablo como presidente de Gran Canaria, en las Islas Canarias, ¿no? En el otro lado, no Mediterráneo, sino en Atlántico. Quisiera comentar que se han dicho ya dos grandes preocupaciones. La primera preocupación es la inmigración irregular. Como ustedes saben, las Islas Canarias está a menos de 100 kilómetros de la costa africana y estamos recibiendo aproximadamente, de media, unos 200 inmigrantes irregulares, la mayoría de ellos jóvenes. Si eres joven no los puedes mandar a otro destino, los tienes que tener. Y hoy día hay una saturación de inmigración irregular africana en las Islas Canarias. Comentaba el señor Benot que tenemos que también nosotros provocar nuestras propias soluciones, pero esta solución creo que escapa de nuestra capacidad y que es un problema nacional o europeo, ¿no? Y la segunda preocupación, también muy importante, es las políticas comunitarias de descarbonización, principalmente en el ámbito marítimo. En el aéreo es importante, estamos muy lejos, a casi 4 horas de cualquier ciudad o capital europea, la distancia es importante. El costo de tener que pagar la descarbonización en Canarias es muy complicado, muy difícil. Y en el ámbito marítimo, además, jugamos con la competencia de los puertos africanos, con lo cual, si los buques, las navieras, vienen a Canarias, estarán obligadas a descarbonizarse y pagar por los derechos de emisión, pero si te vas a un puerto africano situado muy cerca, no tienen que pagar la descarbonización. Quería que estas dos preocupaciones queden presentes en esta asociación. Se está trabajando en ambas líneas. Hemos conseguido algunos retrasos en algunas aplicaciones en los derechos de emisiones, pero si no hay una política clarísima y permanente, que las Islas Canarias y otras islas que están aquí presentes tienen una lejanía y eso es permanente, las decisiones provisionales, pues lógicamente no llevan a grandes soluciones. Muchas gracias por dejarme intervenir.
Thank you, Luis, for this intervention. It seems that the double insularity is on the table. I give the floor now to Nick Tsipiras from Zakynthos.
Thank you very much, George. Well, a lot of interesting topics today, especially for the cohesion policy. Cohesion policy with other areas of the mainland of Europe, even that's for us the Greek mainland or the rest of the European land. We haven't had, I think, the incentives yet to talk about cohesion. The incentives, like it was very interesting earlier, we heard about the tax incentives that are needed for island areas. This is very important because we don't see a differentiation between policies and between island and mainland of the region of Europe, and also in Greece the same. Now, all these incentives and together with the funding to support the comparative advantage of the island areas, and this should bring a sustainable development, but we have a lot of dangers, a lot of very risky things in the future that are coming. One is the carrying capacity, as said before, over tourism, and the big problem that we have with labor hands on the islands. This bringing possibly negative services, quality of services offered, so we can support this very big inflow of tourism the last few years. Like there is a very big development, tourist development in numbers all over the islands, and we can see many places talking today about over-tourism. But can we support this? And we have to see these policies to try and create a sustainable development for the islands. So together with all the dangers, with the climate change, the demographic problem, these are challenges that we will see in the future, which is very threatening for for development of the islands and economic sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nikos, very to the point your position. Any other intervention?
If I may elaborate
Yes.
a little bit more, it's me, President Manolis Koudrakis.
Yes, please.
Yes, sorry for the intervention. Just it is always great to have dialogue with all of you, but also personally with all of you. I think Nikos Tsipras mentioned two things that are related to resilience that we have to a little bit clarify, not here in this discussion, but we have to measure and clarify, because there are many differences and disparities in that. And I will be very clear. At the same time, we have the position of the small islands that they say we have a demographic pressure. We're evacuating islands demographically and something is happening. And at the same time, in other small islands, in other areas, with other circumstances, we have issues about carrying capacity. We don't have the teachers and professors to teach the kids that, because we have a baby boom in small islands, but in other areas. It means that territory matters in a way that our policies are adaptive to that. These particularities is something that we need to emphasize on. Carrying capacity not only in destinations or islands that are touristically over mature, and now we are facing and dealing with the over tourism, if I may say, which is something in Greece, for example, like Santorini, like Mykonos, but also smaller islands that they're facing these kind of issues, and we have to be very sure. But we have the time to prepare the smaller islands, because inevitably tourism is the only economic sector that can be very supportive, even the seasonality that we're facing. It is strongly and very viable for the enterprises, helping people to maintain their settlements for the winter. So yes, tourism in a way that is sustainable is something good, but in a way that is sustainable. We have to prepare those islands and create new destinations, but not for the massive tourism, but for those visitors and those that they are willing to pay for that. So it is more related to tourism activities, but in a way that makes sense. And then, yes, we can create local economies that keep people working and living in the islands. We have these disparities and these differences in the Greek islands. I have very specific examples in my mind, but I'm not going to share it with you because you all know that, and I don't want to emphasize only in Greece, but discussing with people also in Croatia and our colleagues in Croatia in the project that I told you, we have very specific common issues for that. I'm quite sure also in Spain, but in another level, because we discussed with the Balearic, but also in Gran Canaria, but I'm speaking not for the outermost regions, but the island regions that they fall under the same article, because we don't have the same framework, but we still believe that everything can work also for the outermost regions, that they have already a very specific framework that we need to make sure that it's still working for them. But also something that Nico said, the human capital. At the same time, we have an island that we cannot find people to work in the tourism sector, but also in other sectors, not the tourism, in agriculture, and people looking for work in the smaller island closely or in another island. We have to make sure that there is a balance of economic activities that they can maintain these issues. That's why we need specific, not just indicators. We can measure. We have measured that. The problem is create all the necessary settlements, but also the necessary functions that are critical, which means connectivity. Lefteris, I think he said that in the beginning. Connectivity is the most important. And then everything will come more easily. Because if we secure the connectivity and safety of the maritime connections, it means that we create a safe environment for living, and also that creates a stable environment for investments in the small islands. I will use an example that worked very clearly in the past in Greece, and we're trying that using European funding also for that. And it was a very, very good moment for us in the negotiations for the running programming period. The multi-annual public service obligations for those routes that were not non-commercial. We have created destinations and we have created stability in some small islands that now we are facing over tourism there, which means that if you secure a good and viable connectivity, it means that economy will work better. And then the state should just give incentives in order to keep a balance between the social, economic, and environmental aspects. We have all used many policy instruments for that. We have to evaluate what worked and what didn't work. But connectivity, the safety that is related with the social security and other services. Because at the same time we have to face the problem in Mykonos or Santorini, but at the same time we have Thirassia, the smaller island close to Thira, close to Santorini, that we're facing problems that we're facing also in the north of the Ionian, as I told you. This is the particularity that we have to make sure that is clear with island-related lenses of the cohesion policy, because we need to have support in that for more justified policies. And carrying capacity and human element at the same time create a more resilient environment. Just a small note about the importance of what Nikos Tsipras said.
Thank you, Secretary General, and I think this, with this position, we arrive at the end of our meeting today. I will, before I thank the interpreters for their excellent work, I just knew for all of us, a member of INSULEUR, is that we have requested, as you know, the second meeting of the year is organized in an island, in a hosting by a local chamber. So I have requested to Mr. Vardakastanis to, let's say, make a joint event in an island, and following, I mean, the acceptance of Madeira CCI. Maybe, I say maybe because we have just a positive response, but it is not at all certain. We will have our, let's say, next event in Madeira, with not impartially, jointly with the committee, and this means that we will have interpretation with us, offered by the committee. So, please, President, some conclusion and close the...
No, when we were speaking, I remembered what I had said in Athens earlier, last year, I think, when I can't remember now, but I think it's on the 19th January, it was this year. And I think Nick was there and George was there also. And at that moment I was thinking about islands, you know, and I was delivering this island as front runners in sustainable transition of the Mediterranean and beyond. And when I was reflecting during the night before, I said, policymakers and people in government, you know, think about islands when they think about their holidays. We cannot be on the back burner all the time, but now we must change our position. And with your help, we can do it. Thank you.